Okay. That brings up 9C, presentation on the 5-year street reconstruction plan.
Good evening, council members, mayor, and staff. Item 9C, I just want to go over the 5-year street reconstruction plan that we've got. We usually come in January, February to discuss it because we want to get out ahead of this year's reconstruction project before we start having neighborhood meetings and hearings and things like that. And for 2018 Reconstruct, we did send out a neighborhood meeting notice. It is in your, it's a 2-pager, in your status reports, and I attached to the back of it. It will be noticed for possible quorum of council members. The meeting will be, it's for pre-design. We're just getting going on the design of the project. So we want to get input from the residents and property owners on what they see as issues that we haven't seen out there with our survey work and stuff. But the meeting will be at the library January 18th at 6 p.m. It's a Thursday night. So everyone has been noticed on that project. We don't need any specific action tonight. What we're just looking for is discussion and consensus on where we're going with the reconstruction projects over the next 5 years. You'll see on the maps, I'll show them here in a second, we have added other projects on there to show you kind of more where all the construction's going on. Summer, a little bit on next summer, and then it gets into more just the reconstructs after that. We assess approximately 25% of these reconstruction projects, so that's a good thing as far as stretching our dollars to build, more infrastructure. But it does cause a problem where we don't get petitions for these projects, which we haven't had any on street reconstructions ever. So we have to get a super majority of council to order them in at the project hearing, and that's why we want council consensus on the areas and locations where we should be working on these projects. Because if we go through the work of surveying them, getting them drawn up, having neighborhood meetings and coming to the council and then getting them turned down by two no votes of council, it's a lot of staff time and a lot of stuff that's wasted, a lot of time that's been wasted and money getting to that point. So that's why we like to talk about it ahead of time. We like to have these neighborhood meetings early and stuff of that nature. The 2018 Reconstruct has changed a little bit from what the CIP has shown in it. It isn't much. It's just a little change. It's all these ones in magenta here are the reconstruction projects for this year, 2018. This is the residential street reconstruction, this 1A. It includes McSorley Street, a segment of Bush Street from 7th up to almost 10th Street. We've got 9th Street from East Avenue over to Bush. We've got 10th Street from East Avenue to South Park, 11th Street from East Avenue to South Park, and then a little bit of South Park from 9th to 10th Street. The area that we've changed this year is this segment of Bush Street. We stopped a little bit short of 10th. We had that going all the way to 10th before, but there is a large storm tunnel that goes under one house and right adjacent to another house through their lots in that intersection or right next to that intersection. And we decided we're going to look at that a little closer and maybe try to get that storm tunnel out from under the house and put it in the street. Basically what we do is we just abandon it under the house and adjacent to the other house just for title cleanup for future use, for future title work. So we've taken that little segment out of this year's project and we've moved it into 2020. So I'll show you that here in a second. Otherwise, that project has stayed the same. The things that changed since last year are taking that little portion of the project out. Also, the assessment rates have been changed to reflect that we will be replacing all the sidewalks on there. That was a discussion item through council late last year that we felt because of all these ADA changes and we're going so far from the corners with these sidewalk replacements, we should just replace all the sidewalks on these projects instead of just piecemealing it and doing those intersections. So that has been changed on there. Another thing and stop me and holler or raise your hand at any time if you have any questions on any of these, because there's a lot of them that I'm going to go through here. Also in 2018, we have 2 alleys, and they are up here in the area between 4th and 5th and Dakota and Fulton. It's right where we had our reconstruction project last year. We didn't want to do the alley at the same time as the street reconstruction because the residents, everything would be tore up. Or this way, at least they had their alley. They could park back in there without that being tore up. All the streets are tore up. We did do the entrances to the alley, so we don't have to tear those up this year. We'll just be working from the sidewalk to sidewalk in that block. Also, another block where we've had some questions from residents on getting it replaced is down between 3rd and 4th and Franklin and Hill Street. So a couple alleys, those will be done by Public Works Department. Those are accessible projects too, so they will be coming forward here this spring through council process as far as for accessible projects. Then we go to item 1C on here, which is the Eisenhower Bridge. This year, it's kind of a big year for the city utilities because they will be reconstructing 3rd Street from Plum out towards the bridge. So a couple blocks there that they'll be replacing sewer and water and services and reconstructing the road. Also Bluff Street between 3rd and 4th Street where they'll be doing sewer and water work in there and the street work. So that's something that we'll be watching pretty closely so that we make sure everything meets our standards. Then we also have the 3rd and Bush intersection right downtown, that ADA accessible ramp reconstruction. That one will not be accessible. The one with the Eisenhower Bridge is an accessible project that's already gone through the project hearing. We're keeping an eye on that, and we'll do the assessments after the project as far as activating them. But the 3rd and Bush will not have assessments on that. That's replacing that whole intersection, including sidewalks and getting everything ADA standards for that intersection. We'll be getting electric hookup possibilities at all 4 corners for special events when they have the different events down there.
Ron, are you planning on replacing that mid-block crossing?
Yeah, that's shown on there too. We will be looking at doing that as well.
I'm just curious, what are you planning on doing with it?
What we do, we'd get rid of that median out in the middle, and we would put bump outs on the sides so that the pedestrians can come out to where the backs of the cars are and then look.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then cars wouldn't, see right now it's kind of just backwards because as you come down, that median pushes you towards the side where the pedestrians are coming from, and they can't see you because they're coming behind those cars, the parked cars. So if they can be out at the edge and you can stay in your lane right through there, and we'll put in those flashing, those rapid rectangular flashers, like down by the Jordan Towers.
Yeah.
The only thing is right now, they've rescinded, the federal government has rescinded the use of those on any federal projects because there's patents on it, and the federal government doesn't allow patents on things that can be used with federal money because then it's all aimed at one person making income off of that. So they don't allow patents on that kind of stuff. So we're trying to figure out, that just happened like 2 weeks ago, that got rescinded right after we put them out on a Safe Routes project, which was a federal project, by the way. But they said anything that's in the ground working, leave it until its useful life is done. And then if you use federal money to replace them, you can't use those again. So we'll be researching what we should be using there if there's other options. Or being it's all city money on this one, we could still use it in that location. But yes, we will. That's what that little dot is, the 3rd Street crossing there. Then also, when I look on page 2, we have one other project, which is the Spring Creek Road project, which will be going on in 2018. We're looking to advertise, let's see, about the middle, hopefully about the middle of this month we can get the ad out. I still haven't heard from MnDOT on the final plan review from central office. We're hoping to get the plans out for bids middle of this month and let the project, so that the bid opening would be about the middle to end of February on that, so we can get that project going early in the year because it's a big project. So then when we move on to 2019, the residential street reconstruction project is up in the Putnam, Sturtevant, Pine Perea, Sanford, Kingman, and Grace area up here. This actually goes up to the water tower up here. That area up there is in really tough shape. when we did West Avenue back in 2014, I know we had council members that said, why aren't we doing Sanford at that time? But we had federal dollars on West Avenue, and you can't expend the project outside those limits. So we did work that into this project with Putnam and Sturdivant, which is area where we have concrete streets. And one thing that I had mentioned is we could overlay those streets. That's what we did to West Avenue to give us a little more life on it. But our Public Works is real adamant that they want those reconstructed because the utilities are so bad underneath there that it doesn't pay to try to extend the life of the pavement any further. It's got all the galvanized, most of these areas that we're doing have the old galvanized water services with the lead goosenecks, which are all way outdated, and yet we go with copper now and no lead in that line.
So I know on Putnam and Sturdivant, the sidewalks come right up to the edge of the curb. Are you going to have to put the sidewalks, set them back away?
I haven't really looked at that. We haven't surveyed it or anything, and we haven't looked at what we're going to do there. There might be options. I get the feeling those sidewalks are still right at the right-of-way line. I haven't even looked to see if the back of the walks are at the line, and because the roads are wider, maybe there might be an opportunity to narrow the streets down a little bit and get a little boulevard area. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But that'll be looked at next winter when we start getting into that one heavily. But that is our project for 2019 residential street reconstruct. On that, since last year, the only thing on that one that's changed is just the assessments have been updated to replace all the sidewalks. 2019, we have 2 more Public Works alleys down in the area between 3rd and 4th Street, and then it goes from Dakota to Franklin. So there's 2 alleys in a row there to get done next year. We've had, like I say, in that area, we've had some complaints on those alleys. They're blacktop alleys, but they're just alligator and falling apart. They're rutted and stuff. So we'll get the curb on one side, which controls that water so much better than the old way the alleys were done, where it was just paved. This controls the water to get it out where we want to get it. It runs it where we want it, so it doesn't go in anyone's garage or in their yards. And then also, hopefully, 2019, we'll get this Sturgeon Lake Road Bridge built too. Right now, where we're at with that, and that one we got money. One of the things since last year is we got all that $14.7 million in state bonding money for that project. So the clock's ticking on that. We want to get that constructed. The tribal council is working on getting the appraisal done on the property. We need a little bit of property from the Prairie Island Indian community on their side of the tracks, that northeast quadrant, to get the bridge or to get the roads built in there. They're doing their appraisal now. I'm not sure how far along they are on it. They did hire Bolton and Mink to do a traffic analysis because of those large event parking issues they've got out there for summertime where they have those outdoor concerts. Bolton and Mink has sent something back late last week. I haven't had a chance to review it yet, stating that there are issues during those concerts and that they feel there should be another access point near that service station that's there. So we hopefully will be meeting with them later this month to talk about that and see exactly what they need. I don't plan to open up the plans at all and change anything until we get this memorandum of agreement with the tribal council for the right-of-way. So once we get that moving forward, then we'll fine-tune the plans. Buy the right-of-way. We've got federal dollars to buy the right-of-way now. MnDOT has allowed that. So we'll be able to buy right-of-way, get the plans fine-tuned, and then, which shouldn't take long at all, and then we should be able to construct it next year if we can get that memorandum of agreement going here in the next couple months. So then we go on to 2020, and the first one, the street reconstruction project in 2020 is this 16th Street area up by East Avenue and Central Park between there, and then Central Park from 16th out to 18th, and then 17th and 18th Street up in that same area. We also added that little spot on Bush Street where that tunnel is that I talked about that we took out of this year's project, and we added 8th Street between East Avenue and Bush Street to finish off that area and finish off this area where last year we did all these other streets up in this, in this Central Park Street area. So that'll kind of finish all that off in 2020. We also have the pedestrian bridge where we have federal dollars down on Old West Main Street going over the tracks. That'll be a 2020 project. We have federal money. That's the year it has to be spent. Right now, Dan is running a project with Bolton and Mink to lay out where that bridge should be put, what, aesthetics and layout of Old West Main Street will be there as far as, and the touchdown area down in the park where that head bridge will come down. Once we get that alignment set up, we'll get going on design to get that bridge ready for 2020 construction. This 3C on here, Public Works, has an alley in 2020. It's off of West Avenue. It's kind of a strange one because it goes off where 9th Street is, goes behind the houses, and then comes back out on West Avenue again. So it just kind of goes behind the houses and pops back out. But that area's got some storm sewer issues back there and some drainage issues that they want to get corrected. And that would be an accessible project. Then in 2021, we start concentrating down on the remainder of the east end that hasn't been reconstructed yet. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, we did sewer separation projects that went up 5th Street, Centennial, and East 7th Street. So that's why those streets are all being left out here. They were all built in the late 80s, early 90s. So now we're trying to get in there and get the rest of those done. The project for 2021 is 4th Street from Bluff all the way to the end at Arkin, and then a little bit of Arkin, Green Street, Sanderson Street, and the last remaining portion of 3rd Street right by the cul-de-sac that they're doing for the bridge project right now. And then we also have West Main in 2021. That's when we have the federal money for that. We just applied for, or we will be applying this month here for more federal money for that, which would come in 2022, and that was one of the consent items tonight. If we get that money, we're still building in 2021. We'll advance construct it, which means we pay for that, whatever money's coming in 2022, and we'll get that money a year later. So it's still a win-win situation with the federal money there. Then we go on to 2022 street reconstruction, and that's finishing out. That will finish out the area of East End where 6th Street would be done. The area of Hodgman and Green Streets between 5th and 7th, Bluff Street between 4th and 7th, Potter Street between Plum and Bluff, and then also, 4th Street between Plum and Bluff, and then Potter Street between Main Street and 4th Street. Then the only thing remaining basically on all of that East End area from Bluff Street easterly is 7th Street from just past Centennial all the way out to out by the training school where the 7th Street hits the highway. And that is scheduled for 2023 with state aid, so that'll be our next year's solicitation for federal money for 2023 on 7th Street. Then a few more of the other projects, I listed them in here for this year and into next year are, the annual City Street Mill and Overlay project. We'll have a street reclamation project. We have the levee wall, commercial dockage and park improvements, and the Vogel wall, harbor wall extension. That will go through design this year with construction next year. The 21st Street water main strengthening project, that was supposed to be 2017. We ran short on time, didn't get that constructed, so we'll get that hopefully done this year, encumber the money forward. The Riverfront Trail from Barn Bluff to Cowell, I know that's the one that Peggy voted against applying for money, but we are in the design phase of that right now. And we just actually had a meeting today. We're getting real close to our discussions with CP because we do need easements from them on that. That's what we see as our big hang up on it, is getting through CP, but I think the distance we're off their rail and the height difference between our trail and their rail and their tracks, I think we should be able to work that out with them. But that will be coming to you hopefully in another month and a half, what we find out from CP. And that one, the plan is to design it this year, build it next year. We've already gotten over $1 million on that one. We're applying here at the end of this week for $900,000 in more federal money. And then tonight you approved applying for 250 and 150 from two separate DNR grants. So, and then it's also on the state bonding request too. So we're trying desperately to get funding in for that project kind of all over the place, wherever we feel we can on that one. Then I got the Hewitt Avenue, or Hewitt Boulevard, Red Wing Avenue, street construction by those apartments up there. Yeah. And I'm not going to press that one until I get a petition because we've got a lot of projects going on. I don't have time to go looking for one. And then also a state aid overlay project next year that we'll be surveying later this year and hopefully get that done, like $1 million overlay project for state aid routes. So that's about all I've got on it. If there's something that I know last year we did change the two around from 18 and 19 and we flopped them so that McSorley could be done in 18 here. So other than that, we really haven't moved them. We've just a little piece of one project we moved around and we added the 2022 project on. So if there's anything council sees that we should be doing differently, just let us know and we can change them. But that's where we see the needs right now.
Are these all going to be done before you retire?
not this whole plan.
I
Just hoping.
Any other questions? Anybody? Kind of let it sink in a little bit.
Yeah,
And then send questions to Ron, so if we have to make changes at future council meetings, we can get it done. Because it's a substantial amount of money. We're talking, what, 35 million, I think?
It's quite a bit, when you look
Yep.
at just Spring Creek at $8
And
million.
about 16 million of it's going to be geo bonds.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but
So that gave me one request, is that we could get an annualized list of, not on the maps, all the funding breakouts, and then a total, not just each project, but like total for the year. And so we can see so I can look at it really quickly and say, oh, yeah.
That would kind of be in the CIP under the roads section. Would be-
Right.
These projects are all under there. There are some, and it is kind of separate because you look in like trails and you see that trail project down between Barn Bluff and Cobble. You look under parks and you'll see that bridge, pedestrian bridge. So they aren't all under roads. I kind of like to keep them all into roads, but some of them have been pulled out.
Well, I'm just saying, you put them on the map here, why not make a list with this? But if that's too much. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
we
you.
could definitely do that. And I've got, this is 5 years. I've got it out longer on a spreadsheet to get those other state aid projects like 7th Street. 4th Street is also in the hopper when 7th Street is done to get back on 4th from West Avenue out to Buchanan, or up to 7th Street actually, because that is in tough shape too. And we overlaid it recently here. I had it a few years out and then some council members are complaining, some citizens are complaining, and Public Works said overlay it. So we overlaid it and then we pushed it out so that the overlay isn't wasted. So it's like, I think 12 years from when the overlay was done last year is when that one is. So 28, 29, something like that. It's a 2-year project.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Get
Yeah.
your questions in or comments into Ron.